Hey, Substackers. This is Lynn Liquidy Smargis back for another Ask Me Anything live. Thanks for joining me today. Today, we are talking on another topic of getting your book ready and getting into the mindset of writing and publishing your book and what you need to do that. I am Lynn Liquidy Smargis. I'm a ghostwriter and book editor with my company, Write For You. My writing assistant, Hemingway, has joined me this morning on Substack. Say hi, Hemingway. Hemingway is not a polydactyly cat, but he is my writing assistant, and he does a very good job at typing JLs repeatedly. All right, so let's get into today's topic, which is setting realistic timelines for writing your book. So you may, or you're probably thinking about writing a book if you are subscribed to my Substack. If you're not, definitely subscribe, because every week I do a live and then I post an article on writing and publishing, which is super helpful for you to make the next step in your writing journey. So for writing and publishing, you really want to make sure for the writing process anyway, you want to figure out how many words per minute that you write, right? And that's the number one thing you need to figure out to create a realistic timeline. So if you're writing, say you're writing 100 words a week. Now, most people are going to write more than 100 words a week, but we're going to use that number because it's really easy for math. So if you write 100 words a week, that means you're going to write 400 words a month. That means you're going to write 4,800 words in a year, right? So if you write 1,000 words a month, that means you're going to write 12,000 words in a year. And if you have a 40,000 word book, it might take you 4 years to write it. Okay. So if you write 1,000 words a week, and then you have 4 weeks in a year and you consistently average, right, about 1,000 words. So some weeks might be 1,200, some weeks might be 800, but around average 1,000 words a week. Then that means you're going to write 4,000 words a month. And then that means you can have a rough draft done in 12 months, right? Because if you write 1,000 words a week and you do that every week for 4 weeks, that's 4,800 words a month. And then you multiply that times 12, and you're going to have close to 60,000 words in a year. And so that is like 40,000 words is about average for a book. And that turned out to be about 200 pages, give or take, depending on, if you have pictures, diagrams, tables in your book, things like that. But typically, a 12 to 15 chapter book of 40,000 words is going to be about 200 pages. And that's if you don't have like a ton of pictures and things like that. But if you have a memoir, that's going to be a little bit more. So memoirs are typically around 325 to 375 pages because one, it's going to have more content typically in a memoir. And two, memoirs almost always have lots and lots of images, which makes sense, right? Because if you're writing a memoir, you want to have images to show those different stages in life and or these different challenges that you've overcome, and or sometimes people show like pictures of how they were struggling, which is really important if you're writing a memoir, especially if you're writing a memoir where you're showing people how you got out of a challenge and you got to the other side. So with that writing piece, right, you need to figure out how many words you're writing in a month. But before you do that too, you need to have a set writing schedule. So can you find a time and or times in your week where you can schedule and block out and protect that time just specifically for your writing? So that means going in your calendar and finding the times that you are not busy, and or if you are really busy, right? Make those times, block out those times. So when I do this, I typically have to do this 2 to 3 weeks ahead in my calendar if I want to block off time for anything, because I'm typically booked 2 weeks out, right? And you don't want to have to go in and reschedule a bunch of people. So find the time block on your calendar that you're not super busy and super packed and start scheduling those out. So maybe it's Thursday mornings between 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. Or maybe you go out for a jog every Friday morning and your head's really clear and you have really good energy. So you're going to sit down and write for a half an hour after you come back from your jog and your stretch. Whatever it is, right? And most people typically work better writing during the morning. However, that's not for everybody. Like my youngest daughter, her best time to be creative is late at night, like after 10 o'clock, between 10 o'clock and 2 a.m. So Hemingway is also enjoying our talk this morning, huh, Hemingway? so, um, so anyway, yeah, so So make it during times you know you are the most creative. So if you're most creative in the morning, block off 2 or 3 mornings every week. And that could be Saturday morning if you want. I know I don't block off Saturday mornings for writing because that's usually my morning to sleep in. So I know that's not going to be a good time for me. But if it's not a time where like you sleep in and you like to get up and go on Saturday mornings, then schedule that time. Maybe Sunday mornings you have time before you get up and do your stuff for the day that you can sit down and write. Or maybe you're going to go out and do things on Sunday morning and come back and write when you're done. Or maybe you go out for a walk on Sunday morning and then write. I do recommend, if you can, to do something physical before you write because that's a really great way to clear your head and make like, all these feel good chemicals come into your head and your body so that you are in a really good headspace because you cannot write and you cannot be creative when you're stressed. It doesn't work out, does it, Hemingway? No, it doesn't. So, and we know this because when I'm stressed, this little guy can figure that out, and he comes and sits on mommy. And he also sits on mommy when he's missing mommy, like in the morning when he hasn't seen mommy all night. So anyway, stress will kill your creativity. So if you're having a really stressed out day and you did block off time, give yourself some grace and say, okay, so today you can either miss that day altogether and or if you want to reschedule it for like the next day or maybe it just didn't work out that week. That's okay. Give yourself some grace and then maybe your next time block if your next time block's Friday instead of writing for half an hour, write for an hour, right? So give yourself grace. Don't be hard on yourself if you do miss a time block. However, if you miss multiple time blocks in a row, then maybe that's a signal that that time block isn't working well for you and or you're not doing a good job to protect that time, right? Because we never ever it's never like, oh, I'll just make time whenever because that never happens. You need to intentionally create that scheduled time and block it off and protect it so that nothing else gets in the way of that time together, right? Unless it's hugging your cat, right, Hemingway? All right, so Hemingway is going to decide he's had enough time in the video, he's going to go do something different. So you definitely need to block off time. And then once you figure out the average of how many words per month you're going to write after a month of writing or so, then you can take that number and you can figure out how long it's going to take you to realistically write your book, right? Like some people are like, oh, I want to write a book in 6 months. Well, that's great. If you write 1,000 words, say you write 250 words an hour, you need to break that down and figure that out. All right, awesome. So we've got a question. Thank you, Mike, for putting the question in. If you have any questions, definitely drop them in. And Mike says, what routines or habits have you found most effective for building a sustainable long-term writing practice, even on days you don't feel motivated? So for me, what I do for myself is I like writing between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. That's actually my downtime for my circadian rhythm, which means it's the time I'm most tired of the day. But actually, because I'm usually doing a lot of client writing, but what I do is I love writing for myself. So I reward myself and say, okay, if I get when I get these client things done, I get to write for myself. So, so writing is actually my reward for myself for doing all of the things I need to do during the day. And then I'll jump on like a writing group or a creative group where we get on like Zoom or Twitch or YouTube and everybody's doing their own thing and we're just chatting in the chat box together. And then we have like 45 minutes to sit and work on our stuff. And then we get back together and talk for a few minutes. And then we go for another writing block. So I love those kind of get-togethers because they're informal. I don't have to go anywhere. And it's just really fun to just sit and chat with other creatives and give them ideas and get ideas and these things like that. So that is a great question, Mike. Thank you. So on days I don't feel motivated, sometimes I don't write at all. Obviously for client work I do, but like for my own personal work, it's really hard. And one of the things I did notice recently is that I have a lot of ideas like I want to do, but what I need to do is sit down and write a list of like all the things I want to do and then prioritize that list, right? Because if I keep thinking about all the things I want to do in my head, then I just get decision fatigue and then I can't move forward on anything. So I literally will sit down with a pen and pencil in my journal and physically write it out because that helps get a lot of the ideas out of my head. Another thing, if I'm getting really stressed or if I have a lot of things in my head or get decision fatigue, is I do what's called it's called morning journal or a 10-minute journal. You can really do it any time of the day. And I actually prefer to do it at night because if I can get things out of my head before I go to sleep, then I sleep. I usually sleep pretty good anyway, but it really helps to process things before I go to bed so that I'm less likely to have a bad dream or a dream that is going to be anxiety based. So I like to just get out my journal and write anything down that's in my head. And then that clears my head and then I can sleep better. Another thing you can do too, the 10-minute journal is good for is if you are out of ideas, literally, and this sounds really bizarre, but it works really well, is just sitting down with a piece of paper or your journal, whatever, and you don't have to even keep this, right? You can toss it if you want. And just sitting down and writing whatever comes to your mind for 10 minutes. And it's really crazy. But for some reason, and this works all the time, I've talked to other people who have done the same exact thing. For some reason, you hit the bottom of page 2, and it's like your mind has taken all the stuff from the front and put it on paper. And now you're getting some really good ideas from the back of your head. So that's another thing you can use is the 10-minute journal, right? And before you actually do your writing, to get ideas out of your head that you have that are going on that are not part of your writing so that you can clear your head for your writing piece because that is the one key thing you want to avoid writer's block as much as possible and to have a good stream of conscious is to have your head, your thinking part here clear and ready to go. So that is definitely I hope that answered your question, Mike, about what to do when I don't feel motivated. And sometimes, obviously I just say, okay, I'm skipping it. And I do have several disabilities that I work around. So sometimes I might be in too much pain to write and it's just it's not working. So I skip that day. So I do have more days that I do need to skip because of my disabilities that I would like to write. But I try to at least do something for my book if it isn't writing my book. Maybe it's doing a marketing piece or working on a platform or something like that not if I'm not feeling well enough to write. So that is another challenge I deal with personally. I know some of you out there probably also have disabilities too and have to deal with that same thing. So I hope this has been helpful in trying to create a realistic timeline to write your book, right? And if you want to write your book in an unrealistic timeline, I would love to assist you with that. Right now, I am working on 2 books. One is a client. She has a fabulous podcast, and I'm turning her podcast content into a book. And another client right now, I'm working on some editing for his book, and possibly another client at the end of this week, I'll be working on some editing for his nonfiction book as well. So if you are looking to write your book in 3 months or 6 months, and you know your writing habit will not allow that, and you need some assistance from a ghostwriter, definitely hit me up on my website, writeforyou.me, or private message me here in Substack. I'll be glad to assist you with that as well. I love working with clients and helping people just get their book done, get their bucket list item checked off. And or if you're writing your nonfiction self-help business book, real estate, investing, whatever it is, right? I love working with people, right? I don't consider my clients, I'm working for them. I'm working with them to create this amazing book that they can use for a calling card, they can use to give to their family members as if it's a memoir, whatever your nonfiction book is. I am here to support you. And I am actually the only publisher I know that literally works with my clients to self-publish their book. So you have complete creative control over the entire process. All right, friends, I hope this has been an informative Substack for you today. I thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And remember to book a discovery call with me, which will be at the bottom of this post if you are looking to hire a ghostwriter, even if it's not now, if you're thinking about it for January for the new year, get on my discovery calendar now because I have a lot of people that are looking to write a book in January. So I'd love to assist you. So please make sure that you're on my calendar so we can chat about your book project and see how we can work together. I hope you're having a wonderful day, my friends. Again, this is Lynn Aliquity from Write For You, signing off for another week of Ask Me Anything Live on Substack. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Have a happy holiday.